and gentlemen, welcome back to yet another episode of The Draw Step. And let me preface this one by saying, this deck should not exist. This was not meant to be a commander deck. However, unfortunately, one of my incredible subscribers in one of the other deck builds I built challenged me to build this deck, and I said I would. I'm a man of my word, so I built the deck. Who are we working with? Well, today we have Phage the Untouchable. And let me be very clear here. When Phage says that Phage is untouchable, Phage means untouchable. What does Phage do? Phage says when Phage the Untouchable enters the battlefield, if you didn't cast it from your hand, you lose the game. I don't know how to tell you this, but the command zone is not your hand. The command zone does not count as your hand. So if you try casting lovely old Phage from your command zone, game over. You've lost the game. Now, to make up for such a heinous atrocity as putting a card that you can't use into an area you're not supposed to use it, it does say, when Phage deals combat damage to a creature, destroy that creature. It can't be regenerated. So that is like, I don't know, super death touch. Really just make sure it is done for there. And below that, it has whenever Phage deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. Now that part, I gotta say, that's pretty incredible. That is a one-hit KO with your commander. So it is a challenge. Getting Phage onto the battlefield is going to be a challenge. But as soon as you even breathe in the direction of one of your opponents, you just blink, just hit him. Just hit him a little bit. With Phage, game over. Dunzo. For them. Out of it. So, certainly has potential. Now let's get into what we cooked up here to make it happen. I am going to, instead of separating this by card type, I'm just going to break down the individual strategies throughout. The deck build for this, the deck list for this build is in the description below, and this one's kind of a work in progress. This is what I put together. I've been play testing it. I've had some kind of mixed results. So if there's anything you would change about this deck, or if you've ever tried to build a Phage deck, let me know in the comments below. Let me know how we can kind of tweak this group project. Let's make this thing happen. All right, starting out, most of our lands are just basic swamps. This is a mono black deck, so the majority of it is just mono black. However, there are a few critical non-basic lands. The first one is Urza's Cave, which it normally taps for colorless, but you can pay 3, sacrifice it, search your library for a land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, and shuffle. Now, why that's important is because that can help tutor for one of our key pieces. I was going to touch this in the note. I was going to cover it in another segment of the breakdown, but I think it's important because we're talking about non-basic lands. Command Beacon. This is a game-changing land card, but just card in general for this deck because it has tap, sacrifice Command Beacon, put your commander into your hand from the command zone. That is a super strong effect. Normally you would use it to evade commander tags, but in this case, you're using it to evade dying. You're using it to avoid losing the game. So that's a great way to get our commander from our command zone into our hand, so then we can cast it from our hand and avoid the whole losing the game tidbit. Next, we have Felmire. It can enter as a land, or you can use it as a destruction spell. Just kind of depends on what you need in that moment. Phyrexian Tower. You can tap it for a colorless, or you can sacrifice a creature and get 2 black mana out of it. So you can get some extra mana as time goes on, or depending on the situation, you need a little bit extra mana. Bingo, got it. Speaking of extra mana, we have Peat Bog. Basically, it can get you 2 mana when you tap it, but you can only do it twice and then it's gone. So use it wisely. And the last of our non-basic lands, again, this can be a critical piece to this deck build, but it's Rogue's Passage. You can pay for, target creature is unblockable. So that is that's going to be big. Once we get our commander out, you activate that, swing through. They can't do anything to stop it. They're getting hit with Phage. Their game over. Nice. Let's run through quick some of the not as critical pieces to the deck, but some good includes. So these are all just the creatures that we have, kind of creature fodder, blockers, something we have in the deck. The first one I have, Etch Familiar, can gain you life and take out some of your opponent's life. Drana, Liberator of Malakir. It's nice just to have that flying in the deck, but then again, also we are going to be trying to attack with Phage. We're going to be attacking with other creatures, so it'll get stronger over time. Twilight Prophet, 4 mana for a 2/4 with flying. Again, that's nice in and of itself, just having that blocker if an opponent is swinging through with flying. But it says at the beginning of your upkeep, if you have the City's Blessing, which you get the City's Blessing by having 10 or more permanents, you get to reveal a top card of your library, put it into your hand. Each opponent loses X life, and you gain X life, where X is that card's mana value. That's doing a lot right there, really. On a 2/4 flying body, you are getting card draw, you are draining your opponents, and you're adding to your life total. That is great. We love to see that. Kami of Jealous Thirst. 3 mana for a 1/3 with Death Touch, and then you can pay 5. Each opponent loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life. Now that is a little hefty mana-wise. I would not want to pay 5 mana for that effect. However, it says this ability costs 5 less to activate. If you've drawn 3 or more cards this turn, activate only once each turn. So we do have a decent amount of card draw in this deck, so you can basically get your card draw. Well, you have to get your card draw, but then you can just activate that for free. You're getting for free 2 life and draining your opponents for 2. That's not bad value right there. Sengir the Dark Baron is a 4/4 with 6 mana, and it has flying. Whenever another creature dies, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Sengir Dark Baron, and whenever another player loses a game, you gain life equal to that player's life total at the beginning of the turn. So again, if you're hitting an opponent, if you're able to get your commander out quickly, if you're able to hit him early on, you could get 30, 40 some life just from smacking your opponent with Phage and having that in place. So that is a really nice effect right there. Desecration Demon. It's a 6/6 with flying for 4 mana. And then at the beginning of each combat, any opponent may sacrifice a creature of their choice. If a player does, tap this creature and put a 1/1 counter on it. Now, in the game of Magic these days, there are a lot of tokens that players can sacrifice, but depending on how early you get this out, which 4 mana, you could potentially get it out pretty quickly. Worst case scenario, it's forcing your opponents to sacrifice creatures. It's building that demon even stronger. Best case scenario, you got a giant flying creature. That's nice value. That's a nice ability. And then our last creature we have for 8 mana, Archon of Cruelty. It does a lot. When it enters or attacks, target opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker, discards a card, loses 3 life, you draw a card and gain 3 life. So it's an insane amount of value. It is expensive, but we have quite a bit of ramp in this deck. Speaking of ramp in this deck, first and foremost, Soul Ring. Every deck should have one. Wayfarer's Bauble, nice little ramp piece there, getting extra land. Arcane Signet, Mind Stone, again taps for 1 colorless. Jet Medallion, this will help. It's not ramp in and of itself, but it helps reduce the cost of our black spells, so saves us some mana there. Ever-flowing chalice, the more you're able to put into this, the more it can tap for, so that can give you quite a boost of mana there. Similar to our medallion, we have Bantu's Monument. It does cost 3 instead of 2, but whenever you cast a black spell, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So that's kind of a nice trade-off there. Here's one that will be a really big value as far as helping you ramp. For 4 mana, you have Crypt Gas. It does have an exert ability, but basically it's making all of your swamps tap for 2 instead of just 1. So that's big. Dark Ritual, you know it. Pay 1, get 3. Black Market Connections. This has quite a bit of versatility depending on what it is you're trying to do. It can create a treasure token, so it is giving you some extra ramp. It can be card draw, or it can create a 3/2 creature if you're just really in need of blockers or something like that. So we have Black Market Connections, and we also have Black Market. And this one is whenever a creature dies, you're getting charge counters on it, and beginning your pre-combat main phase, add a charge counter, or add a black for each charge counter on Black Market. That's great. There's going to be a lot of creatures dying. Our creatures, our opponent's creatures. It counts. It says a creature, so it counts everybody's creatures. So if you hit them with a board Y8, or if somebody does, I mean, that's going to ramp that up, going to give you quite a bit of black mana. And then last, we have the old classic Solemn Golem. Gets you a land and a card, so it replaces itself once it's gone. Now, another piece of ramp I didn't put in yet, but I wanted to kind of highlight on its own because it's a little bit of a combo, but Mana Vault. Now, again, I understand Mana Vault, it's not for everyone. This particular art foiling, it's what, about $80 some, so you're not necessarily going to have this in your deck, or like not everybody's going to want to spend the money to put this in their deck. I had it, I included it. The reason why I have so much ramp in this deck is because our commander, 1, is very expensive. 2, we're having to do a lot of extra legwork to get our commander out of our command zone into our hand and then cast it and all the other steps along the way. So we want to be able to do this as quickly as possible. So we want that fast ramp. We want to be able to pull this off very quickly. So Mana Vault, if you haven't played it before, it costs only 1 to lay, but you can tap it for 3 mana, which is insane. I mean, that's even better value than a Soul Ring. However, downside, it doesn't untap during your untap step. If it's at the beginning of your draw step, if it's tapped, it deals 1 damage to you, and you have to pay 4 to untap it. So when you first lay it, you tap it, you get that boost of mana. However, you are also going to have to pay more to untap it than it's getting you, unless you have, how do you pronounce it? Voltic Servant, something like that. For 2 mana, you lay it, and beginning your end step, untap target artifact. So you can pair this with Mana Vault. You're paying 1 to get down something producing 3 mana. This is untapping it for free, and you're getting 3 mana every single turn. That's great. That is great value with that right there. Moving along, we have a couple different things for not necessarily ramp, but Defiler of Flesh and Crick, Son of Yawgmoth. Both of them basically do the same thing with just extra words on the bottom. The main thing is that it can reduce the black pips in the cost of things by paying 2 life instead. So help a little bit with that reduction and just speeding things along for the low cost of life. From there, we have just a random artifact, but it does have value. It's an equipment. It's 7 mana. Okay, so it is pretty hefty, and it gives your creature +1/+0. So you may be thinking to yourself, why would I want to pay 7 mana for a +1/+0 equipment? Well, because whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, unattach Elbrus Binding Blade, then transform it. And when you transform it, you get a 13 creature with flying, intimidate, and trample. And whenever a player loses a game, put 13 1/1 counters on Withengar. So you lay this. By the time you get Phage out, you equip it, you swing with Phage. That player loses the game. You get to flip this over, get 13-13, throw 13 more counters on it. Now you have a 26-26 flying, intimidating, trampling demon. That could be GG's right there. I mean, your opponents are going to be in grave trouble. They're going to be in grave trouble even just having Phage on the table. But having this too, it's a nice little extra touch. From there, we have some unorthodox ways of getting our commander into play. Now, we're going to get into more of a fine-tuned approach here in a second, but this is just brute force, shall we say, getting our commander out. The first one, Platinum Angel. Can't lose the game. It's a little pricey to get out. However, having it in play does nullify Phage's effect. So you could get this and then just lay Phage, and that would keep you safe. The other is Likes Mastery, which also says you can't lose the game. Now, this one's a little bit more tricky because as soon as it leaves the battlefield, you do lose the game. So it does come with some card draw, it does come with some other effects there, but once you lay it down, you're committed to the bit. You're going to want to make sure that never leaves the battlefield or you're cooked. So once you have those two in play, you can cast your commander, or if you have Geode Golem, it says when it deals combat damage to a player, you may cast your commander from your command zone without paying its mana cost. So that is tax fraud, so to speak. It's getting your commander out for free. However, be very careful. Do not do this on its own. Do not think that this is like, woo, got my commander out. No, because that still would trigger Phage's ability of killing you because you're not casting it from your hand. So you need like a Platinum Angel or the Likes Mastery in place so you can't lose the game. Then you can attack with this and get your commander out for free. So that can be very nice. Once your commander is out, your opponents are going to want to destroy it as quickly as possible. They are going to understand that it's a threat. So we have a twofold approach to dealing with that. The first is protection, for lack of a better term. It's not blue protection. We're not countering spells, but we have a couple of these. We have Battle Rage Blessing for 2 mana, instant. Target creature gains Death Touch and Indestructible. So if an opponent lays like a board wipe or target removal, that is going to keep your commander safe right there. Offer Immortality, exact same thing. Death Touch, Indestructible. And then Fake Your Own Death, still 2 mana. But it gets, when this creature dies, returns to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. I did just realize, technically speaking, this would cause your commander's ability of the entering the battlefield not from your hand dying. So again, be careful using this one. You're going to want your Platinum Angel or something like that in play so it doesn't kill you. But it does keep you from having to go through the steps of getting your commander back, into, casting it or getting into your hand or whatever route you're going. So it gives you some protection. Just be careful using that particular piece. Now, the next part of the protection that we have, and speeding things along, we have Swiftfoot Boots, which gives it protection as far as hexproof and haste. That's big. Having this on the battlefield, then as soon as you get your commander out, you can equip it, swing with it. We want to be doing this as quickly as possible. We do not want to give our opponents time to respond, to destroy our commander. We want to get it out, get it on the battlefield, get it moving, game over. The other one is not quite as well, but it's Lava Spur Boots. Equipped creature gets +1/+0, has haste, and Ward 1. Ward 1, definitely not nearly as good as hexproof, but it is still, it's some extra taxation on your opponents trying to take out your commander, and it's giving it that haste, which is big. Another solid piece that we have in here is Strionic Resonator. It copies the triggered ability. So once your commander hits, that is a triggered ability. It says when it deals combat, or whenever Phage deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. This copies that. You can choose a new copy or a new target for the copy. Now you're 2 for 1 your opponents. You can smack Joe Blow, he loses the game, trigger that ability, and now John Doe also loses the game. That's huge. That's huge. Your opponents are going to hate that. If you pull that off, I assure you, you're going to have some very salty friends, which kind of fun, kind of part of the love of the game. Now, for getting your commander into your hand, we do have a couple different approaches. Again, we talked about Command Tower already. We also have Campfire, which we can lay and exile, get our commander into our hand. Those two are only one and done. So use them carefully. This one, again, for the cost of health, but it is repeatable. We have Netherbloom Altar, which you can tap, and basically it'll bring your commander to your hand. It does just do some damage to you. Now, from there, we have some ways to make our commander evasive, because she is only a 4/4, so depending on what your opponents have, they may just block her, chump block her. The creatures will die, but it's a lot better than them losing the game. So we have a couple different things. We have Suspicious Bookcase. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. That works well. Glaring Spotlight. It removes hexproof from your opponent's creature, which, don't get me wrong, that's a nice enough effect in and of itself, just sitting there for 1 mana. Be able to take care of an opponent's effect or a creature and get around hexproof. But for 3 mana, you can sacrifice it, and creatures you control gain hexproof until end of turn and are unblockable. Nice. Swing through with your commander, they can't do anything about it. Smoke Bomb for 3 mana. Flash, all creatures have Shroud, gives your commander protection. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice Smoke Bomb. When you do, target creature you control can't be blocked this turn. Obviously, you're going to pick Phage. Obviously, you're going to swing through. Obviously, your opponents can't do anything about it. And obviously, they're going to lose the game. Last, for our evasion, we have Filth. As long as Filth is in your graveyard and you control a swamp, we're in mono black, we're going to control a swamp. Creatures you control have Swamp Walk. So again, some pseudo evasion right there. Just got to get Filth into your graveyard. As far as messing up our opponent's plans, we do have some destruction. We have this, which can exile a creature or planeswalker. Noxious Gear Hulk, which can destroy another target creature. Withering Torment to either destroy a creature or an enchantment. Tragic Slip, which technically only gives a creature -1/-1, but very easily you can hit that threshold, or morbid as they call it. Creature gets -13/-13 till end of turn if a creature died this turn. There's going to be a lot of creatures dying. You can do it at instant speed. You can take out one of your opponent's creatures. Go for the Throat. Destroy target non-artifact creatures. Most creatures are non-artifact creatures. Yes, it's technically limited, but it's basically a murder for 1 less mana. Feed the Swarm. Again, destroy target artifact or enchantment. That is nice. And last, we have Blasphemous Edict, which can take out 13 creatures for each player. It does affect you as well, too. It is a board wipe in most situations, but it can be a board wipe for 1 mana if you're just not... if your opponents are building up a huge army and you don't have Phage out or you can't do anything, boom, get rid of them. Now, if our opponents choose to be meanie bobinis and take out our creatures, we do have some ways of getting them back. First, we have Revenge of the Rats, which doesn't get them back, but creates some tokens for all of the creature cards in our graveyard. That's flashback 2. Zombify, 4 mana, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. This can also be a way to cheat out cards. Like if you get your Platinum Angel into your graveyard, you can then lay Zombify and get Platinum Angel onto the battlefield for 4 mana instead of its normal 7. Exhume, 2 mana. Each player puts a creature card from their graveyard onto the battlefield. This is a little bit of a dicey situation. It's by far the cheapest way of cheating one of your creatures into play or returning a creature into play. However, you got to be careful because your opponents may also return some big scary creature to the battlefield. But you can also kind of look around. Maybe an opponent doesn't have a big graveyard. Maybe you have a way of getting rid of a creature or something from their graveyard, so then you can feel a lot safer laying that. No One Left Behind, 5 mana, but it costs 3 less to cast if it targets a creature card with mana value 3 or less. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So you could get this for as low as 2 mana, depending on what creature you're returning to the battlefield. And then Null Priest of Oblivion, 2 to lay, 4 to kick. Has lifelink menace. It's a 2/1. When this creature enters, if it was kicked, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So again, just another way of recursion, getting stuff back. For getting to the cards that we want, we have a couple different ways of going about it. First, we have card draw, Village Rites. Pay 1 is additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature, draw 2 cards. Into the Pit. This isn't card draw, but it does allow you to look at the top card of your library and potentially play it as well too. So now you're working with extra cards at all time. Gives you some flexibility there. Hopefully get the pieces that you need faster. Feed the Infection, 4 mana, draw 3 cards, lose 3 life. Profane Command, this gives you some flexibility. It's 2 mana and X. Target player loses X life. Return target creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Target creature gets -X until end of turn, or up to X target creatures gain fear until end of turn. They can't be blocked except by artifact creatures or black creatures. Again, a lot of flexibility here. You can use it to do damage to an opponent, which you probably are not going to do because we're not really focusing damage base. We just want Phage out. Target creature gets fear. You can do this for 3 mana. You can lay it for 3 mana and be able to give your commander fear. And if an opponent doesn't have any black creatures, they're not going to be able to stop you. Phage is coming right through. Dire Sight, 3 mana. Surveil 2, then draw 2 cards, and then lose 2 life. And Phyrexian Arena, 3 mana. At the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card and you lose a life, so extra card draw on each of your turns repeatably with that. Now we have some tutors. We actually have quite a few tutors, so it's giving us extra chances to hit those pieces that we need to make this deck work. First is Demonic Tutor. Technically, it on its face, for 2 mana, it tutors for a demon card. However, Delirium, if there are 4 more card types among cards in your graveyard, search your library for any card, put in your hand, then shuffle. It should be pretty easy in this deck to hit that Delirium, whether it be getting your instant sorceries, creatures, artifacts, whatever. There's going to be a lot of stuff going to our graveyard throughout. Should be easy to hit that Delirium. Then for 2 mana, you're tutoring for a card. Runescarred Demon, 7 mana for a 6/6 with flying. Not great, but when it enters, search your library for a card, put it in your hand, then shuffle. So it's a tutor on a body, which isn't bad. Being able to have a giant flying creature after tutoring for something, that can be pretty nice. Imperial Seal, 1 mana, search your library for a card, shuffle, put that card on top, you lose 2 life. The cheapest tutor we got, not US dollar wise, but mana wise. Vargavoth Blood Sky Sire, 3 mana for a 2/3 with Death Touch, and when you attack, if it deals combat damage to a player, you can pay 2 and tutor for a card. You are putting the card on top of your library. It's not going directly into your hand, but you are finding those pieces that you need. Illicit Shipment, 5 mana for a tutor. On its face, it tutors for 1, but if you sacrifice a creature with power 3 or greater, you can tutor for 2 cards instead, which can be nice. You can get yourself like a Swiftfoot Boots and a like a campfire or something to get your commander into your hand, and then once it's on the battlefield, lay it as quickly as possible, or attack with it as quickly as possible. Insatiable Avarice, 1 man to lay, and then it has spree. It can be both a tutor and card draw, so that gives you quite a bit of flexibility and value. For in total, you'd be paying what, 5 mana for tutoring and drawing 3 cards. That's pretty nice. And last, we have Beseech the Queen. You can pay it for either really, you just, in a mono black deck, you're going to be paying 3 black. And you get search your library for a card with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of lands you control. Reveal it, put in your hand, and shuffle your library. In a mono black deck, we're going to have a lot of swamps in play. We should be able to lay that for fairly cheaply, and we have so many different cards that aren't that expensive. Even if you lay it on turn 3 when you have 3 swamps out, you can still get your campfire or your nether bloom, a couple different ways to get your commander into your hand. You'll be able to get those combo pieces that you need very quickly to make this deck work. So again, this is a very janky commander. It's certainly not the easiest to pull off, but we did lean into our commander's ability. We aren't just going with a strong mono black deck. We are trying to make Phage work for us. But if there's a different way that you would go about it, again, let me know in the comments below. Maybe you would add more tutors. Maybe you have some other different pieces that you would go. I would love to hear. I want to know what you guys think. But if you like this video, like the video. Not that much, not that hard. Also, don't forget to subscribe, ring the bell notifications. So if you want to see other upcoming deck builds, you'll be able to see them. And if you want me to build your favorite deck or a challenging commander, I'm always up to the challenge. Let me know what commanders you want to see next. And speaking of seeing things next, there's going to be another deck build review on the screen right now. I know you're going to want to watch it, so I'll see y'all next time.